Hello, hello, hello. This is Carla Michelle, and thank you for pressing play and listening to another episode of the Strong Woman's Network podcast. I'm so happy to have you here today. And I also want to remind you, if you haven't already, subscribe. It's great to have you a part of this journey and hearing what the guests that I have and hearing what I share is such an opportunity. If you are not following me on Instagram, I'm at Miss MS Carla Michelle. It's at MSCARLA And please make sure you DM me and tell me that you were listening to the podcast and decided to follow me on Instagram. And that would be a great, great experience. So we are here and we have a guest today, Melissa Shepard. And it is an amazing thing because we go back a few years and we'll discuss that, as part of the episode. But she's a psychotherapist, an educator, and an author. Melissa, how are you?
Hi, Carla. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, my pleasure. It's a delicious thing, I'm sure, for me. We'll get that. We'll let you know what we mean about everything being so delicious. Delicious. So for those of the listeners who do not know who you are, can you just kind of give us some background of who you are, what you do?
Sure. My name's Melissa Shepard Williams, and I am from Panama. Have been living here in the U.S. already 34 years. I just can't believe how time flies. And as you shared, I'm a psychotherapist, I'm an educator, and most recently in my life, a published author. And so I'm definitely honoring the stereotypical Caribbean in that I wear so many hats. Oh, my
I love
goodness.
it.
Yes.
Well, I think in this day and age, where we are in the world, a lot of us are having to learn to wear many hats because we're having to learn how to shift and pivot or whatever it is to stay on top. So you just got a head start on it.
Yes. I mean, flexibility is essential.
Yes.
To not only this time that we're living in right now, but it really can support our growth.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Tell me about, you said, okay, you're a recent author. Tell us about the book.
Well, my most recent one is called From Burnout to Bliss. My first one is called Living Deliciously. There's that word again.
I love it.
And From Burnout to Bliss is definitely in many ways exploring my own experience of burnout, which happened some years ago. But it also includes the experiences of others, and I, cite certain references to substantiate discussions about burnout. And I definitely wanted to be sure to include cultural context and how it informs becoming burnt out. And the arts, because I'm learning, not only because of my work with artists, but thanks to my upbringing, I know I have a bias in favor of the arts as the platform to explore pain and healing.
Can you say a little bit more about that?
Sure. I'm learning that, in the course of world history, so much of the information that is available about not only the challenges and pains that have moved from one generation to the other, but also stories of survival and thriving are manifested in visual and performance arts. The arts invite us into reflection and sometimes move us into activism or the art in itself. The art making is a form of activism.
That's so true. I didn't think of it like that, but it is. It is. It tells a
Mm-hmm.
story. You're able to do so much through the arts. You're able
Mm-hmm.
to express your opinion, express your beliefs. Is that where you're going with that? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's what I get
Yes.
from it. Okay.
Yes. That's what I'm
Yeah.
learning. That's what I'm learning. Mm-hmm.
Wow. I love it. And then the one thing about art, it's art. It's like follow to me. I dabble into those follow the dots, the numbers coloring in,
Mm-hmm.
and the sipping paints. But to me, I
Yes.
know it's so relaxing, even with the sip and paint, even if you don't sip.
Mm-hmm.
It's something about working that right side of your brain too, that gives you such
Yes.
a
Mm-hmm.
release and open.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I feel I'm tense at first, because I'm trying to follow this perfect person who's leading the class. But
Mm-hmm.
I really think that if we really on our own would get some paint or a pencil or something and get something to paint or draw on and just express
Mm-hmm.
ourselves, that's
Mm-hmm.
healing it in itself.
Yes. It definitely can be. And especially if we let ourselves be in a reflective place, because we're able to catch a bigger perspective on what's happening in our inner world and
Yeah.
the world around us.
Yes. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So burnout to bliss, and you said it had a cultural content. And so if someone listening right now and they're,
Mm-hmm.
some are essential workers and they're out there, and then some are working from home but are burnt out.
Right.
What is there
Yes.
something that you can help us with? Is there a couple of tips or just insight?
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing that I have been finding helpful, and I've heard other people talk about how it's been helpful to them, is pausing, pausing, giving ourselves permission to pause, which, when looked at from a cultural diversity perspective, there are many cultural narratives that say do not pause.
Yeah, yeah.
And that can contribute to burnout, for sure. But definitely pausing. And for someone who's not accustomed to pausing, this practice can be experienced as quite flooding, because then you're going to be in touch with things that went by the wayside because of not pausing.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily easy to pause, but it's an important step so that we can be present to our experience in the moment. Ideally, in addition to pausing, we're also uh, engaging ourselves in self-soothing. Well, the kind that's life-affirming. That kind. That kind.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good. I
It
know.
takes practice.
Yeah, because people like you such a great point. Many people are scared to pause because we don't want to. I won't say we don't want
Mm-hmm.
to feel
Mm-hmm.
sometimes what we've been running from,
Mm-hmm.
and why we do. Some of us work so hard because we don't want to deal with the real issue at home
Yes.
or in
Yes.
our lives, our personal,
Mm-hmm.
whatever is going on. We use
Mm-hmm.
work as an excuse to bury ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So pausing is, I like to say, when you can sit, I don't want to cuss on this, but when you sit in that sugar honey
Yes.
iced tea,
I remember the first time I heard that. I thought, wow, that's a cool way of putting it.
when you sit in that
Sugar honey iced tea.
yeah, when you sit in that,
Uh-huh.
and then you're not fearful of the aroma that takes place.
Right.
And I think that's why people don't pause, because they don't
Yeah.
want to smell the aroma of their life.
Right. And that definitely shines a light on how it's very easy to say, well, just pause. It's not that
Mm-hmm.
simple. It's
Mm-hmm.
not that simple when, nonstop activity has served a purpose,
Mm-hmm.
and so, yeah, there's got to be a willingness to be with the aroma.
Yeah. And be okay.
you know, yeah, learning new ways to be with discomfort is a
And you know
practice.
what I'm thinking with that? So imagine if we sit in it and we smell it, imagine that's possibly what people are smelling all the time. The stuff we
Mm-hmm.
don't want to deal with, but we think we're hiding it.
Yes.
But it
Mm-hmm.
really makes us ask that question, what do you smell like?
Exactly. And you can run, but you
Because
can't
it's all
hide.
around you. What was the with
Ooh,
Peanut Gallery and the dirty one with the mist all around him? It's like you think people
yes.
can't tell you jacked up, but they see it. So why don't you sit
Right.
down and deal with it? I love it.
Right. And let me tell you, if you don't sit down, life will sit
Won't
you
it?
down.
Won't it?
At some point, and sometimes the sit down means the sit down sometimes shows up in physical illness,
True.
as an
Mm-hmm.
example. What the world is experiencing right now, I am perceiving it as quite the sit
Whoa.
down.
Forced.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, when we don't take initiative,
mm-hmm.
life will sit us
Yeah,
down.
it
Yeah.
will.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that we all take advantage of that, because I definitely I agree with you. It's just it's a forced. And even when there were some signs for the California area that we were getting back out there, then they slowed
Mm-hmm.
us down again. And that
Right.
speaks to a lot of our lives. Like, you're just not ready. Take this time
Mm-hmm.
to really do the work and really
It's
go ahead.
it's difficult.
Mm-hmm.
It's difficult because, I mean, if it's challenging even for someone who's equipped with some level of self-care practice, again, the life-affirming
Mm-hmm.
kind,
Yeah.
imagine how much more difficult uh, this is
Oh.
to hear
Mm-hmm.
restrictions. And then if you add to that how much more difficult it may be for someone whose lives is guided by privilege.
Mm.
Oh, it's even harder to hear no.
Yes. Yes. And I going into this pause and where we are, and yes, privilege, and it's harder to hear. It's even with the social injustice that is happening in this
Mm-hmm.
pause moment. It does make those who don't understand or don't see it, or whatever, wherever they are in this
Mm-hmm.
pause, it's getting more traction because we can't run from it. It's not business as usual.
Right. Right. Again, we can run, but we can't hide.
Yeah. Because I mean, in this, it's opportunity to
Mm-hmm.
really, do that self work, and even, in racism or whatever you're facing. So
Mm-hmm.
you talked a little bit about, you mentioned to me the pandemic, and talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, I definitely find it interesting that because of the pandemic and the need to follow quarantine rules, certain things that have been happening intergenerationally,
Mm.
as it, we're talking about racism.
Yeah.
These things are now becoming more and more visible, not only to people who um, were aware but not deeply immersed in the situation,
Mm-hmm.
as well as people who have avoided looking at it.
Yes.
So the pandemic is again life sitting us down.
Mm-hmm.
Watch this. Watch it. watch it, take it in, be moved by it. And the world has been moving.
Yes. I think more than we've seen in probably 30 something years, you know. You know, I think back like Martin Luther King. That's where I'm going with, you know, those kind of
Mm-hmm.
type of movements to this level,
Yes.
to where
Yes.
it's, I mean, and it's in that sitting down that is giving
Mm-hmm.
us more power in our rising up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
wow.
And may the sit down also be one that stimulates grounding.
What do you
Grounding.
mean by that?
That as we let ourselves learn how to be with our feelings, even I'm going to call them difficult ones,
Mm-hmm.
um, that we plant ourselves in a desire to learn more about them, so that we can be moved by them with wisdom.
I love that. Yeah, I love that because it isn't that we don't want to be haphazard. Whoever you are listening, whoever we are here talking, we
Mm-hmm.
don't want to be in
Mm-hmm.
anything we're doing right now, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's in racism, whatever it is, especially
Mm-hmm.
racism right now, is to
Yeah.
move in wisdom and to move in insight of what your next step is. I've said
Mm-hmm.
this before. It's like it's easier to get on someone else's bandwagon and what they stand for, but really to sit in it and see what you stand for.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's an authenticity that helps you really advocate for
Yeah.
what you believe in,
Yeah.
which normally will match with what's going on, but at least your voice is your voice of how you deliver and advocate on
Mm-hmm.
what you believe. So
Yeah. I mean, let's learn about what's happening internally. And it's a process that benefits from a sense of community, which many people do not have.
it's a process. I missed that. I'm sorry.
It's a process that benefits from a sense of community, the learning process, the why do I feel this? What is it that I'm feeling? Because healing ought not to be done in isolation. Unfortunately, there is such a thing as toxic community. So, I mean, this takes a lot of uh, um, energy, to really be grounded in a desire to learn and catch perspective, to
Mm.
identify communities that can actually support one's learning. Like let me learn about alternative points of view. Is it possible that what has been taught to me has some there are some holes there that this doesn't jive. There's some blind sides. What is it that I have learned, and do I need to challenge it? Do I need to question it? Where else can I look so that I fill myself with information? So now we're inviting critical thinking here.
I like that. Invite critical thinking. It's really putting on a demand on individual thinking, but
Mm-hmm.
yet and not using the excuse of, like you said, what you've learned.
Mm-hmm.
Finding the blind spots, finding the holes, questioning, even if you have to go back and question some of the things and how you were raised, you
Yes.
know,
Oh,
or yeah.
yeah. I mean, and it's important to keep in mind that to even say to myself, I'm going to question what I was raised to believe, that can be revolutionary right there.
Whoa.
Like, because you hold it dear for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not as simple. It's not an either or. It's a very nuanced process. This re-examining
Mm-hmm.
the history of your life, the history of your community, the history of other communities. It's very nuanced.
I love it. Good points though, and a good call to action. A good call to
Mm-hmm.
action for everyone to not just take this where we are in this in the world, not to take it lightly, but really find meaning behind it. Because
Mm-hmm.
I like to say definitely everything happens for a reason. Let's find out the reason that it's happening to us at
Mm-hmm.
this time in our lives, regardless of how old we are or what the color of our skin,
Mm-hmm.
or what we believe.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it happening right now? And then do our work, do our critical thinking. I love it. You're such an
Exactly.
educator. You're such an
Exactly.
educator. Tell me.
Well, thank you. So are you.
Yes. Tell me about Living Deliciously. I know that's one of your other books, but
Mm.
that's what reigns with me over since 2016. Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Yes,
We
we
go back.
do. It's such a, for those of you who don't know, she was actually a professor during my master's program. And as you see, she's so wonderful. How many people do podcasts with their professors? But I do, because she's great. And
We
we
have
do.
a love
It's
thing.
it's so delicious.
Yes. And let's let
yes.
people in on
Oh,
this
yes,
inside
please.
joke. So I guess I'm never gonna live
Never.
it down, but I use that word to go in multiple directions. It could be a positive situation, it could be a
Hey,
negative
it
one.
works.
The freeway is congested.
Delicious.
It's delicious. But a thought is inspiring. It's delicious. So
Yeah.
it all depends. It depends on the
Yeah.
moment. And so in our class conversations, we use this phrase very frequently. So there's the inside
And it
joke.
has stuck since. It's just delicious. Just delicious.
Oh my goodness.
Well, tie it into Living Deliciously. So what was the focus of that book?
Okay, the focus of it is again inviting reflection. Inviting reflection about how to be well in relation to ourselves, in relation to people in our lives, honoring my wellness as well as someone else's wellness. That my choices are thought out through that filter. Does this decision honor my wellness and yours? And so essentially the writing is all about reflecting on life affirming choices. What are life affirming choices? And they are a compilation of newsletters that I send monthly. I send them in English, I send them in Spanish. So both books wrote themselves that way. It was not meant to be a book. The first book was meant to be the one about burnout. And so I said, well, while I'm working on this, let me compile these newsletters and share them, have something to share in the meantime. Well, they became books. So it was as people say, a happy accident.
Okay.
And I included a lot of the Caribbean sayings I grew up with. So my grandmother and my mother are they're all over the place from one chapter to another.
Well, that means they were impactful. So it makes sense. Yeah.
Oh yes. Yes. And suggested activities and just because I named it Living Deliciously, Vivir Deliciosamente, then the suggested activities are framed as recipes. And just going with the metaphor.
I love it.
Throughout the book.
I love it. And so I just signed up for
Thank you.
your newsletter. just
Oh,
now, as
awesome.
you were talking, I was multitasking, and so I want to know. I'm
Excellent.
like, yeah, this is
Awesome.
good. So,
Thank you.
oh, my pleasure, definitely my pleasure. And so, yeah, I want to just put that in. Melissa M. Shepherd. We'll give you more information as we close, but I just subscribe to the weekly Delicious Inspiration, and yeah, and
Beautiful.
your books are on there, Burnout to Bliss, and
Mm-hmm.
this is really good stuff. And it's so, like I said, you wear a lot of hats, and
I
you
do.
say it's more cultural focused. Yes, I mean based, but
Yes.
I believe that we're all learning. We're all learning to wear, different hats, and the benefit, because we're not just a one-dimensional human being.
Exactly. And for that reason, one of the chapters is about uh, re-examining our lives and considering the possibility that we're walking diversified portfolios.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
How is it possible that I can uh, allow myself to express different skills, yet do it in a way that honors my health?
Mm,
So how can I be, yeah, definitely engaged in multiple things, but in a way that's healthy,
good.
and
Yeah.
so that way we're not dismissing that there is value in being busy in a variety of ways that are inspiring. But how do I do it?
Mm-hmm. How do we do it?
How do I do it and still honor my health?
So do you have any, like, any kind of, like, what's the word, indicators that we're on the right track when we're doing it a healthy way, when we're a diversified portfolio, a walking diversified portfolio?
Sure, I'll be as brief as I can.
It's okay.
And I want to share first how this thought even started. Um, I had just uh, joined a university that is all about the arts, and I was experiencing for the very first time a graduating semester, and and it was during the recession. And so students were concerned not only about the recession, but oh my gosh, I mean, I have this debt. I don't know that
Mm.
there are any jobs available if I audition. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to be booked. All these different things. So that stimulated conversations about, well, wait a minute. The fine arts degree that you're getting does not say that you can't be doing other things with those same skills.
Tell the truth.
And so let's look at the multiple ways that you can be expressing your purpose, the thing that gives you a sense of energy, where you can be doing things that you love and that are in service, and without telling yourself that by doing this one thing you're divorcing yourself from what your degree says. It's a different version of you. So you're not shelving something for posterity. You will return to it because what you are choosing to focus on right now is a different version of you and what you bring to the table.
Mm.
And so, as it relates to health, back to your question, then here's an opportunity to examine, okay, is it possible that some things happen only on certain days or certain seasons of the year,
Mm.
so that I am giving myself the opportunity to be of service in a variety of ways, but they don't have to all happen at the same time. When I am eating Here comes the food metaphor. When I'm eating and there's a plate full of things that I just can't wait to take part of, do I put it all in my mouth at the same time, or do I take bites? Do I different parts of the plate and make that a special bite?
Delicious.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's delicious. So the idea that there are many ways of expressing who we are, and that in itself can be an exercise in self-acceptance.
Wow, that's big, because we will feel, if we don't focus on what we went to school for, and we are angry with ourselves. We're resentful to what we're doing now. If we don't accept that there is a day, there is a season, there is a timing behind it. And so that is a healthy way, a healthy perception of harmony in your life.
And because at the time it was this recession, 2008.
Yeah.
You may recall many people were, because as they say, necessity is the mother of invention. Many people were accessing skills that they had not used for income generation because bills had to be paid. And then all of a sudden, businesses were emerging that they didn't even think they could build before. And then they asked, why didn't I do this sooner?
And that is what's happening now.
And it's happening now. So the idea of, well, wait a minute, have you ever heard of passive income? Let's explore that idea.
Yes.
And so that having multiple sources of income becomes something to consider as a way of life, as opposed to it's an emergency.
Yeah. A way of life instead of emergency. Key. Yes. I love how you said self-acceptance. And then I think about living, true to ourselves in whatever. It's different for everyone because we're true to ourselves. We're not copycats. But these are the time, even in the recession, I think back at 2008, 2009, I ended up going back to school. I was laid off. I was on unemployment around that time. With divorcing, laid off. Wow.
A lot.
It was going on.
A lot.
Went back to school and started. I thought I knew where I wanted to go, was the business arena. So, I finished I got my BA. And then I started working because I had to bring in I finally got a job. So I had to bring in a check. It wasn't my goal. This wasn't my ideal job, but it afforded me to do the things that I needed to do. And it also was part of, it paid for what I wanted to do. And that's in starting my own business. So it was that as much as I was getting frustrated of not doing what I do now, it serves a purpose. And what I used to do, I was an executive assistant and I coach executives. So who knew the years, but when I started, that I would even need that skill set, that I would even need to sit in the room with executives and see them strategize and see them, pick out, KPIs or whatever is needed, or just seeing personalities and how the clash and how they didn't know how to communicate, or soft skills, or, or emotional intelligence. But that was all in that room of me not thinking I'm doing what lines up to where I want to go. Preparation, foundation is what I like to call it too. It's even for the people now, when you think what you have to do to bring the money in, doesn't mean, from what you're saying, doesn't mean you don't do your other thing on the side that is really you, or don't think that the two are not connected some kind of way.
Right. And what you last said, don't think that the two are not connected some kind of way, was what I found to be the inviting phrase when I was in the presence of an agitated artist who didn't know, oh my gosh, what am I going to do next? Like,
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Are you saying that if you do this, then you're leaving behind that? Is that true? Is that really true?
Yeah.
Or is that another version of you?
Yeah. Wow. And then that brings some calmness. Because when you
Mm-hmm.
see that it could be, we can't be one dimensional. We're not created to be one dimensional, but we
Right.
cannot be the one that we're bored. We're
Mm-hmm.
not even living a full life.
Mm-hmm.
If I can say, I have a client who we couldn't, when we talk, I have clients, but this one particular client, as we talked, we found that the thing, like she took acting.
Mm-hmm.
This is a great thing. She took acting and she does a couple of things that has nothing to do with acting. But now because of social media and her desire for a social media presence and for speaking engagements,
Mm-hmm.
her acting has come into play.
There it is.
Yes.
There
And
it is.
and
Mm-hmm.
to discover that, like, woo, who knew? I know, she's done commercials, she's done print work, she's done stuff.
Yes.
But she never knew that it would go into her business and to help her be successful. So,
Speaking of acting, I cannot tell you, Carla,
ooh.
how many times in conversations, not only with actors, but, faculty in the theater department, we have noticed uh, so many similarities between their process and that of therapists. The
Oh,
work. I
wow.
mean, it could be a voice class
Mm,
that stirs up
mm,
things in not a very different way from the way it happens in a session.
yeah.
A voice class, the breath. We
Wow.
were talking about pausing,
Mm,
talk about connecting with one's breath. That can be very agitating. It's not necessarily calming, but boy, does it bring you into the present moment.
mm.
I am
Yes.
agitated and need to be aware that I am.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then
Mm-hmm.
making the wise decision based on that pause, which a pause gives you, of what your next step or next act or next word is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're really pausing in that moment and really feeling it and understanding it, and then you can choose how you want to react and not just be reactive.
Exactly. And it's not simple. It's not
No.
it's not simple, to be disengaged
Yeah.
has can have some very conscious as well as unconscious
Yeah.
survival goals. So
Yeah.
so to re-engage, is not a simple thing, and yet part of the necessary journey to become more self-accepting, to become more responsive instead of reactive. The panic of the pandemic definitely touched on reactivity. We're
Mm-hmm.
human. We're human.
Yeah. And we are built to respond in a way of, they have the, what is it, flight or fight, and then there's
Mm-hmm.
another one, right? And
Freeze.
that's our
Mm-hmm.
reaction. And but yet
Mm-hmm.
in that pause, we need to figure out, is this a fight? Is this a fight right now in this pandemic where we are? Is it a fight, or is it something where we need to just really pause and see what battle really needs to be fought right now?
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
am I pushing or am I standing for something?
There you
How
go.
am I using my energy?
Yeah. Wow. That's good stuff. That's good stuff. I like it. Thank
Mm.
you. This is
Thank you.
great. Oh, so I mean, we could keep going, but
We
I'm
could.
going to. I know this is good.
This
Um,
is what we do, Carla. I mean, we can talk for hours.
and it'll be just fine. We'll be just fine with it because not only does it spark something, and I employ everyone just to get in conversation with people that spark your thinking and spark your desires, and you can go back and forth
Mm-hmm.
and just really graze on some good delicious stuff,
Yes.
and and really take it in. I
Yes.
in this, you've said so many wise things.
Well, thank you.
Can you just give us one more nugget in closing?
Oh,
What would you
my.
like the people to know?
A nugget. Oh, my. Well, you know what?
Too much pressure.
I know. I'd like to share my hope. My hope is that this turning point in history is like no other. That's my hope. My hope is we have been in this grand pause, if you will, that's made certain things more visible. Things that have been going on for generations have become more visible. That we are exploring these things, that we're compassionate towards ourselves in this process of exploring. You know, that we let our curiosity guide us in this exploration, that we pause to take care of ourselves while we're learning more deeply about the root of our pain, that we build community, because healing should not be in isolation. You know, and that we hopefully help to open ourselves and each other up.
That's sweet. That's good stuff. And I mean sweet, not like that's cute. I mean that's sweet. That just, you know, no, really, that's just like some sweet, savory, good stuff that we really need to take to heart. So thank you. Thank you so much.
I love this conversation. See, this reminds me of I miss our group.
I know.
Oh, we had good we were digging deeply.
Did. Yes. We did some digging and some wondering.
We did. I'm so thankful that we all remain in touch, because we feed each other. And I want to acknowledge you, Carla, for the beautiful work that you're doing. Every day, inviting people into reflection. And I'm so happy to see it. I'm proud of you. I'm thankful for all that you're contributing to community growth. You rock.
Just trying to keep up with you, but thank you. Thank you so much. And you know, if anyone's listening, this is why, you know, I love Melissa Shepard Williams. So she's a great visionary, a great woman, a great strong woman, as we talk about being strategic, talented, resilient, optimistic, necessary. And she's going global with what she's offering. She has her book, Living Deliciously, and also From Burnout to Bliss. And so you need to visit her website. And what is your website again, Melissa?
melissamshepard.com.
Okay, and I will have that. I'm sorry, did you want to say something else?
Oh, no. I dropped something.
Oh. Okay. I will have her web page in the show notes, but it is Melissa, Melissa, Shepard, Shepard.com.
Yes.
And great. Thank you so much, Melissa. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
You have encouraged us and just made us think and make us really want to. You made me want to take medicine because you made it so sweet.
Oh,
you know, doing that self and sitting in it, and it's okay, and self-acceptance, and doing, you know, it's okay. You feel okay of doing that because it's going to serve us better in the long run.
Yes.
So thank you. Thank you so much.
Be well. I'm sending you a hug through the ether.
Yes, virtual back to you.
Yes.
There you go. Thank you so much, and you have a good evening, okay?
Thank you. You too.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.